所以就能来相就不动当年家中，大概去就人一边从南间到了并且三间多不来。上就把这大内家族接到到了并且三间多不来说。相就不动当年家中间，大概去就人一边从南间到了并且三间多。선제 담제 돈 토자라나면 양다고 조배 선제 공부하는 거 지내요 또 뭐. 대체도 답에 취해서냐 그 상주스 제가 쓰지세다는 삼버시스. Let us cultivate bodhicitta motivation or the altruistic motivation seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of at least contrived bodhicitta motivation, we should participate in this discourse on mind training like the rays of the sun. I'll read a couple of pages from this mind training text from page 96 to give you a blessing of lineage oral transmission followed by explanation.
de animala de nyamala da la da nyamala da khadmai bara ning ta bo ne ko ja ko de shou be she de ru de me bara chu ji tu de se ba ji ji ba de ba de she wa ju ko she ga ra se ju wa de ba xin ma ju se ju wa de ba ji ma ju ku jo ge ji er shu ba xi shum dang song tu la xie ba ga ma zhou la xie xie su zhuo gun xie deng ning na de na pong ye wa ji de wa jing yi na xie na ji ko na jung wo yi zu nam sum no la xie jie wo tu su gu su kang xie jie qi da ji quan di wei wo zhe xiu ni lo zhong 나기 진 텐저를 줄때 대바 셔로 좀 거르주 너무 송 시진메 버르 시진메 버르 김치비 예신예당 제네 제지즈 좀바디가 소시고소 전제 타니 방발로 텐지 예버 제수나 chúa chế đó xin nhớ tôi mơ chế vào đó với chị có ngô chị có ngô chú đuôi đá đi rằng ra những cái chị mình vấn đề đó không được khả năng mà sang bị trong được này mà bạn nên được đó sang ba chị sang này những cái những đó sẽ phải về chỗ sa je bol da ba sha wo ra ba ko yin mo na ja re xie ba ne ji ni mo gun ji ni mo len bie jing xie da de rang ju la rang de da xie bie le da ne ni mo kha ra won je xie we ni mo de ne te ba sha wo da de sha gu da 다 되가리게 뭔데 순종제 통다니는 저하니 도매군제 담마다 몸자리게 모아야지 통다니 저하니 시원디 지지 줘봐도세 토마라 넘라니 메는 넘에 펜베답지 가서 셔봤다 뽕이 쇼라 뽕린게 펜모한테 땅 차드 차이 생긴 바발라 니베체 룽아 그치바 펜바신 도도 틴 도컴 도도 나 텐저기 류트 티진이 취제데 기베신이다 지스스베 통숑 르냥도 가와 차오사 펜바신도 마주나 텐저 취세 취에서 뭐 당지와 도매도 셔발 그 멀리 현재 대다 매샤 오냥도세 이네 셈버 샤오사 냠스 롱아 냠스 롱 라와 랍제와 다디임다 거사 토대님 샤와 가지 더버 꾸는지야 디아 롱도 꾸는지야 디세 펜베도 나 이제 동보 예배데 다디베 지시 철시 티바셰부 차주sem니 여배 페바셰고서 어디 꾸는지야 더버티셰데 시시스 에페베도 가서 해봐 떨세 뻔히 쇼라세 뻔히 펜바 차우디 당시스 다 미가 보야다 tin지르야디 베드르디 베정에 약부셔고서 펜바 당시 다디네 생이 뒤 바라발스 바 니가 되라봐 니에 저 르가 저 당페 저 펜바시도 쇼다고 전저 류톱 되게 쉬어서 제시 예외신이 지도스에 동숑 력량도 가와 공부 가와 모두샤 펜바신의 모습은 대주 취수의 증세 취소만 지와 도미도 시바 이 멀리데 신제 다들 미셔원양도 셈버샤오스 다 같이 되려 더보 공부해야지 드리베 Tiba ka chu chida tang cheva du in shaju sin jo da shi nyam je go be be nim chola ju zan me ba le ya in lob zong zhou ne je shama gong gu ze pemba chu da bo dang gu ris da de ne sen tu pa wa si de zan nie be ge ga ro da je da ma nie ran ga le sub zu lu nga che ba la shim ju zhou xie ne de ri kan je xie da 냠네 약고래도 간제래도 심주시네 니 약고래도 가와고네 다산이 다라는 대가는 세고 섬 가와고 그랬어 근데 기대니가 냠네도 야고 메우시 때 샬쇼래도나 다 대조를 통 드리는 거 니마들은 배 대조를 통해서 초다 당샤시 근데 레마송시 다산이 배 야고 세고서 내 폐버쇼 잡았다서 진짜 염슬린 거 그랬어
No. Actually, Geshe read from page 95 to 98 to give us the blessing of lineage oral transmission called Lung. And we are back to page 95. The big caption reads, the precepts of mind training, or in Tibetan, Lojong Lapcha, I translate as advices concerning mind training. And so in italics, there is a statement which reads, there are two activities at both beginning and end. That's from the fundamental 7-point mind training text. And the two activities at the beginning and end refer to cultivating proper motivation, which comes at the beginning, and doing proper dedication at the end. Yeah. And as Geshe explained, that right in the morning, we should set forth a very powerful, strong motivation that today I'm going to, do my best to engage in positive actions and don't get involved in negative actions. And in particular, I'm going to cultivate bodhicitta, or the awakened mind, altruism, and by way of equalizing and exchanging a self with others. So we set forth very strong, powerful motivation in the beginning, and then in the evening or at night before we go to bed, we should check with ourselves whether we have followed our motivational purpose or not, whether we have spent our day doing all the things in accordance with our bodhicitta motivation. And if we have, then we have a lot of reasons to be joyful and rejoice in our own positive actions, thinking that I have been very fortunate to have found this fully endowed human form, precious human life with all the leisures and freedoms and endowments. And I have been very fortunate to have met with qualified gurus or spiritual masters, and meet particularly with Bodhisattva's teaching or Mahayana teaching. And I set very powerful motivation this morning, and I have followed it throughout the day. And I really rejoice in my own, motivation and actions. And then we, pray and dedicate that properly, and pray that we will be able to continue to do the same thing the next day. But at the end of the day, before we go to bed, when we check with ourselves and do the assessment, and if we find out that we have not been able to do things exactly in accordance with our morning motivation, then we can kind of think this way, that although I've been very fortunate to have this fully endowed precious human life, and met with qualified gurus, and have the fortune to study and practice Bodhisattva's way of life, Mahayana teaching, but somehow I have really not made my life very meaningful or purposeful today. Okay? And we kind of regret for that. And then we resolve that tomorrow we will not let it happen again. We will not repeat that. And tomorrow we will try to do better. So this is how, we can conduct our everyday, life and practice, following that statement called, setting the powerful motivation in the beginning, and then doing proper dedication at the end of our practice or the end of the day. On top of page 96, in italics, we have a statement which reads, train first in the easier practices. Explanation given on that line is, should we think this way or feel, or should we ask this question, wouldn't it be really difficult for someone like me, an ordinary person, to equalize self with others and exchange self for others and engage in all the bodhisattva actions or the deeds, such as the perfection of giving, the perfections of ethics, the perfections of patience, and so forth. Wouldn't that something out of my reach? Aren't those things really difficult to do? And to answer that question, as Geshe explained, that we should tell ourselves that we can do the easier practices that we could do now, but when we engage in these bodhisattva practices, we should know that at the moment we are focused on training our mind, developing the mental habit to think in a bodhisattva way. We know that in reality we couldn't do exactly like bodhisattvas. We couldn't be as generous as them. We couldn't be as purely ethical as bodhisattvas. We couldn't be as patient as bodhisattvas. But here we are simply training our mind. So thinking and doing are two different things. So when it comes to doing, is a lot of difficulties. So we couldn't do exactly like bodhisattvas. But in terms of thinking, at least relatively speaking, it's easier, right, to think. So at the mental level, as we are developing these mental habits to think in a bodhisattva way, so it is easier in that sense. The reason why we do this kind of thinking, although it's not action-oriented per se at the moment, is when we habituate our mind in this way, when we familiarize our mind more and more with bodhisattva's way of thinking, later on it becomes easier for us to actually engage in those actions. So trained minds makes it easier to actually engage in bodhisattva actions. So when our mind is really well trained to think in the bodhisattva's way of thinking, then later, when the time is right, when our abilities are how should I say, enhanced, then we could give our resources and body unconditionally and happily like bodhisattvas do. So at that point, even cutting off flesh from our body and giving to others is as easy as we could give vegetables to others right now. There's not going to be, how should I say, difficulty at that point of time. But to be able to do that later on, we need to train our mind right from now, because without training our mind, without disciplining our mind, without developing those mental habits of bodhisattva way of thinking, it would not be possible to engage in such bodhisattva activities and actions. Yes. So we are on page 96. So next in the italics, we have a statement which reads, whichever occurs, be patient with both. With both meaning good and bad situations or circumstances. As Geshe explained, that we should be able to withstand both good hair days and bad hair days, or good situations and bad situations. What we're really talking about is that sometimes when our life goes so well and smoothly, everything seems to fall in places and everything is joyful, successful, and all of those things, we might get carried away by all the good things in our life, and we might feel arrogant about, like as if, look at me, who am I? I did it all, this and that and that and that, right? And so with excitement and arrogance, so we may lose our spirituality or spiritual practice, So as we say, excess everything is bad, If so many good things are happening, that could also create distraction, arrogance, and we could lose practice. We couldn't take it, withstand good circumstances. But of course, when we have all things going wrong, bad hair days, as if the whole sky has dropped on our head, it's miserable, life is nothing but full of miseries, then we feel very depressed, disheartened, and we feel like, okay, nothing is going to work in my life. We feel completely hopeless, And of course, when you feel hopeless, you are not going to, engage in Dharma because you think it doesn't matter, whatever I do. As a matter of fact, I can't, so again, we could lose practice. So that's why whether we are in good situation or bad situations, we should be able to withstand both good and bad and be able to sustain our spiritual practice. In this particular context, cultivating awakened mind, bodhicitta, equalizing and exchanging self with others. Let's say when some bad things happen to us, maybe we should acknowledge that these are related to bad karmas that I myself have created, accumulated, and by my experience of these difficulties, that I'm purifying my bad karmas, isn't it? So in that way, we transform the difficulty into favorable condition to sustain our practice. Or as we do Tonglen practice, the practice of giving and taking, or taking and giving, whichever way you think, that we think, okay, I have been engaging in this practice not only to face my difficulties, but as a matter of fact, I'm thinking of taking everybody else suffering upon myself. Now, here is the real situation, I'm confronting it, and by facing it off and dealing with it, that I'm able to purify a lot of negative karmas, my karmic debt to other sentient beings. So therefore, this is not necessarily bad, and your perspective changes, and you are able to sustain your practice. As Geshe said, that we already talked about, one of the great qualities of Lojong or mind training practice is how can we transform adverse conditions into conducive path or conditions to cultivate bodhicitta to sustain our practice. So this is really what we can exactly do that. We are in such situations. Okay? And also Geshe gave a couple more examples that Kadamba Geshes would like to share with their disciples. One of the stories is that maybe this is in good old days more, that merchants they load up their stuff on yaks or animals, and then they have to travel far. So during winter, when there is a heavy snowfall, it's very hard to travel in the snow. But then they don't focus on the difficulty snowfall has created, but they somehow started to think like, well, this snowfall is not bad. For some reason, this kind of smoothing the hooves of the animals, like the yaks and other animals, make them look more smooth, and this is really not bad. It's kind of interesting, So this is how their mind is focused more on, not on the problem, but on something, more like positive, relatively speaking, and they get through that difficulty. Or that during the rainfall, when the heavy torrential rain falls, usually life gets more difficulty, but then they don't sit on the problem part. They start thinking like, wow, this is good, because I feel more secure. Robbers and thieves are not going to bother me anymore because it's raining so hard and they are not going to come out. So this is how perspective changing, changing the attitudes, how we look at things and how deal with things, that makes a whole difference. So this is a part of mind training, that when we have difficulties, we don't give into the difficulties, but we rather try to transform them into favorable conditions to sustain and enhance our bodhicitta practice.
Nibo pe so de la song xewa ne rang kelang be se domba kelang be domba song ye che rang ge tamzik da chida de ngar hi lo jong e tamzik lo jong tamzik no so de song xiao wo no de we ra nibo kasa nibo se de da de do kasa so those is the never kelam tamzik da domba tamzik domba in gewa ka yo mara kanji tamzik se na inji bo ji go ya de tamzik se or tanga de se ji nga to so do da ge da so ro da so jo ro ma chen le po ya de pa po ya de ge domba se ro wa chi da gewa de ji mare che da karza che ba de ra ge kelam domba som de da de so da domba changse domba sanga domba som de ro wa o te chera ge ta de na to ta thaba do yi na en de cheva khana ma do da ra shi khana wa ni ni do go ro te se de chera ge tham ji na karza Tenzin Dorjee chita du ngaryo da tikal tweba do kadesa na Dhargye nyamje ke karsa lojwa ti chita di ngarye lojong Tenzin lojong Tenzin da lojong to de de lojong samo to da samo nunju do da samo ji che da diye ganga chi chen kan so de ya en chebe yu chen jang go ro shi di ganga se chita du ngarye lojong Tenzin Tenzin所有的地都送我小屋去，或者所有的地都是送东西的是吧？他地里啊，可是啊，这种地变得大，那古妈妈跟那谁认识了呢？那谁写的？这这里啊，那送东西是吧？是吧？我这是吧的。
We are still on page 96. In the italics, there is a statement which reads, "Guard both at the cost of your life," meaning that whatever ethics and course of conduct or vows and commitments that we have taken, we should, keep them intact or guard them even at the cost of our lives. So as Geshe explained, that in terms of ethics, usually we talk about three types of ethics or categories of ethics. There is ethics or morality of individual emancipation, pratimoksha or pratimokkha ethics. Then we have bodhisattva ethics or morality. Then we have vajrayana ethics or tantric ethics. So whatever ethics that we have, taken, we should, keep them intact, and even at the cost of our life. Even at the cost of our life means, as Geshe's example is given, that should someone say that I want you to, do this negativity, stealing, otherwise I'm going to kill you. So if the person instead of doing the negativity, said, okay, you can kill me, I'm not going to do it. That's what we call keeping your ethics intact, even at the cost of your life. Okay, so in the Buddhist, study on ethics, we talk about what we call the prescribed ethics. Cheba means rules and regulations, monastic vows have been laid out. And if you decide to become a monastic monk or a nun, then you pledge to keep the monks and nuns' vows. That's prescribed for you, right? And if you keep them intact, it is very meaningful, purposeful. But if you break them, then you are incurring some transgressions, isn't it? Then there are certain codes of ethics which are natural, not prescribed, such as nobody should kill. If anybody kills, right, that action becomes negativity, not because Buddha or somebody told us not to do it. It's just because of the very nature of the action. Stealing is unethical negativity. Killing is unethical negativity by way of its own nature, not because of prescriptions or some prescribed rules. So anyway, when we have taken any samaya commitments or vows, domba, commitments and vows are not necessarily mutually exclusive. They could mean the same thing. Commitment means like, those of us who have taken like tantric empowerments, we have committed ourselves to do every day meditational deities, liturgy or sadhana, right? And on the 10th and the 25th of the lunar calendar, many of us have made the commitment to do the talk offering. So that's commitment, right? And if we do them, it is meaningful. If we don't do them, then that's going to incur us some, transgressions. The vows are like the monks and nuns. They have decided to take ordinations, so they have ordination vows that they must keep intact. So anyway, whatever vows, commitments that we have taken, we should try to keep them even at the cost of our lives. No.
Nimmo Ngu Sinjing, Nimu Chene, go to Mon and Dover Sula. Bede say, you two mutable, you two mutable shows, did that because go something down on the but choosing it and the great, you know, and then you move the water, led you move at here, and you move the door.
No.
She thought you move near whatever the car is, not so Palme Chorus in the Zakon Katakan, she had a house of Mogos digger, she said, Tongu Nemo 10 hours.
No.
She thought, could you soon be courtesy to a control on the way, the Zaji, the courtesy, that was a mere shade. That's the concentration, don't think you're what is the one. She said, the girls are 10 cars, Yambo, you move the 10 car, that kissing some of them chamber in the when the judge of Yunguyana and the judge knew some of them. She in the Jacoran Yatsumi, she said, short in the judge never some of the pony shook to cherish the zone. In the car, young the judge, you said to me, she shook shed, never dormant of chicken party. Come to Kangayara. That is chance and dead about dead as a pack to God knows on the sheet on the copy. No said that he did couple, that's about the Motoyamara. She had a Tama usual carriers, I think that you never underrated it out. Come they do the Chiva Calde, you never did you would it. But you were singing, you may tennis, got to Mondo Sulas. Bede, Yundusa, YouTube your shows, what if you see those using Bochina? Tell us how long I potato, Koshuk to the sugar more. Madame ya, but I begot of Suyo more.
No.
She the door lie, stuck by young shook share, there's a door cover you do, cut the jack away or this is job.
No.
She the Tilia. In the today, some of the new moon be goosey, new moon goosey, and the Jack Hondo so she later, dear goosey, and the courses in the caricature you may send the lesson that Hondo in the Melamudi that time, she comes to shoot your wa and Majima lamp in the Taran, the soul, share and do that country cottage or tea near to the sun. And they got to money, Dover to the Beaver so the new Hundred of in the country, get a junglery. In the make the Hinga to get a jump. In the team of Jawashimang in Zondra, said the land and Megagabe called the middle Yomar Siadushin to be real Piazza to Shagrova. And the Jav not to get it Tagana, his wife, has a Nimus the Jav that the Nimus and John Sammy. Tagasco, you did that wasn't called Doto Barwa. That contract that the judge so would be in Nimus and any ticket chin. Unity mutable shows, unity because you get the jail that could come the jigger, the jail at Alonso, just on any curse up. You should be confused when you move goes out curse, you move do soon. And they were making legamies, Taco didn't have to call in the Malins as you were. No, this one you should as you are.
We are in the middle of page 96. In italics, it states, train in the three difficulties. As Geshe explains, that the three difficulties listed there are the three great challenges that we as Dharma practitioners confront. So what are the three difficulties that we have to pay special attention to and deal with? Difficulty number one is when afflictive emotions arise in our mind. Generally speaking, we do not recall the antidotes to counteract them. So that's our difficulty. We just go with our life as it is. That attachment has arisen, the jealousy has arisen, the anger has arisen, but it looks like this is just the way it is. And we even don't notice oftentimes, we go with our own lives. So the first challenge or difficulty we face is we hardly kind of recalled, antidotes to deal with these afflictive emotions. We live our life more unconsciously. We have to live our life conscientiously, right? Very mindful, but we don't, and that's why our life is very distracted. So many afflictive emotions arise, and they do their things. They just stay there, but we just kind of ignore them. That is our first difficulty there we have to deal with, recalling antidotes to them. The second one is, even when we think of like antidotes to any particular afflictive emotion, whether it is attachment, anger, or something else, our antidotes seems to be very weak. On the other hand, our afflictive emotions have upper hand. They are very strong. Attachment is very intense and strong. So is the anger, so is the jealousy, so is any other afflictive emotion. So, even when we apply our antidote, it is as if the antidote is not strong enough to counteract our afflictive emotion. So therefore, we find it very hard to subdue our afflictive emotion or even get rid of them, right? So that's our second challenge, and then the third difficulty is we really find it extremely difficult to uproot afflictive emotions. Even if we apply antidotes, they temporarily help us to overcome them, but then they pop up again, and then we subdue them. So temporarily we're dealing with them, but to be able to uproot afflictive emotions, that is really difficult, right? Until we become an arahat or arahant, right? Until we, achieve a nirvana, we won't be able to, uproot afflictive, emotions. And so these are three great challenges we as Dharma practitioners, confront. And of course, but this does not mean that when afflictive emotions arise, because we think our antidotes are weak, so we just kind of ignore them. We still have to try to right away recall, a particular antidote to counteract our afflictive emotions. It's just like, when there's a small fire, we can easily kill the fire with fire extinguisher, isn't it? If we let the fire, grow big, then it becomes very difficult to stop it. So in the same way, when the emotions arise, they're not strong enough, so we may be able to, temporarily subdue or overcome them. As great Kadamba Geshe Phuntsok famously said in a very poetic expressions, which is very beautiful and powerful in Tibetan, but I don't think I can do justice to that in my translation. But Geshe Phuntsok said something like this: I have only one job, and there's nothing else. My job is, I always stand at the mouth of the cave of my, mind. When afflictive emotions arise, like evil person, then I stand guard with the spear of antidotes in my hands. When the afflictive emotions rear their head, I use my spears to subdue them. But when they are resting, I also rest. When they become busy, I become busy with my spear of antidotes. So this is how Geshe Phuntsok was very practical, and he tried to deal with afflictive emotions right away. So this is how we should also try to do. And so of course, how can we deal with any kind of afflictive emotions is we have to reflect on its, how detrimental any particular afflictive emotion is, how disadvantageous. Like say in the case of anger, if we let anger arise, of course, in this very life, we don't have peace of mind. And if we happen to be angry, often, nobody seems to like to be with us, right? People get fed up. They're like, oh, leave him alone. He is, he is explosive, going to, explode anytime. So people don't like to socialize with us, so we feel isolated and lonely. And then anger also destroys a lot of our positive energy or merit. So it's very detrimental in that sense. We could be creating a lot of merit, but the anger just kind of destroys merit that we are accumulating. And then, when we die, the outcome is not going to be good, because anger will precipitate our rebirth in bad migration. So if we look at the anger, it is bad, 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 and bad, And the same thing with any other afflictive emotion, whether it is attachment or anything. So it is detrimental in this life as well as detrimental in the future life. So thinking about the disadvantages of afflictive emotion, then we should use antidote to overcome it. And then we try to sustain our practice, so that we will be able to prevent them from arising often. And in that process, we hope to uproot them, for good. At the bottom of page 96, you find in italics a statement that reads, transform everything into the great vehicle path. So explanation pertaining to that is, whatever actions we do physically, verbally, and mentally, our actions, should be positive to inspire others, and others feel really good about, thinking about you, hearing you, seeing you. Everything we do through our actions of body, speech, mind, inspire others, to be able to get interested and follow the great vehicle path. Okay? As Geshe explained, that I think again, as we are dealing with precepts or advices concerning mind training, that it is said a bodhisattva, if somebody blames a bodhisattva for something wrong that he or she has not done, okay, of course the bodhisattvas should not feel upset or should not retaliate against the person, but it's important for the bodhisattva to clarify, explain to others that I did not do it at all. Okay? And hopefully that explanation serves the purpose, and that other person will stop accusing you of any wrongdoing. If not, what happens is one person makes up the story that a bodhisattva did something wrong, and then another person, through gossip chains, make it even more. And so now when other people look at that bodhisattva, so they, instead of feeling inspired and good things, they feel, they might think negatively. And so that is not, useful. So bodhisattvas always like to be inspiring and kind of a role modeling for others. So following their advices, what we say is, in our own actions of body, speech, and mind, we should be very conscientious and mindful, so that what we do, what we say, what we think become more like inspiration to others, so that others feel really happy, positive to think about you, to remember you, to listen to you, and to see you. Okay? So that's what we call transform everything into the great vehicle path. Yes.
What is it? Of course, the terror so that's what the terror the cursa told to just change your room. Rega double job, just number good dollar paper, that the you to so the Jumboches get check out, got them check out here. That Tom Tamji Jang, Sanji Soji, what you regard the Tamji Tamji Jang. Tea, Jensenis, that Koran goes to what about in the Tamshi Rishia, did it. Conditionally. So ye tea, tell Jensen, that Koran be Yamdoli, Yakashi, the Tidel, the Jewel, tell them tea Jensen, and the good Tebat of Yatacho, Gagaya, Tideshi do that, and the Paru with it, Tebat, Tidishimukiro, or teachers, that tea Jensen. Sanji is a Tawam and Doa, just what I was. Or Teresi, what that is. So the good Yakoshi Hana. No, the Sanji that's all them to Tonaton, the Tondo Table, the Lashas is I do, what the tickets at origin.
At the bottom of page 96, we have a citation from Birth Stories or Jataka Mala, Buddha's life stories, which basically state the same thing that I just explained to you. And I quote, whether seeing, hearing, remembering, meeting, or talking to them, always do whatever will be beneficial for sentient beings and will bring them peace, unquote. And on top of page 97, great Kadamba Geshe Chekaba, said, this is how he always think about, and he, behave very properly and very disciplined. He said, everybody who sees me, may that become a condition for them to be able to achieve enlightenment. Anybody who comes to talk to me, listen to me, see me, chat with me, may all of these things become conditions for them to find the enlightenment. So that's important. As in some of the salutations to Buddha in Tibetan, we refer to Buddha as someone who is meaningful to see, because Buddha's sight is very meaningful and purposeful, isn't it? You feel so inspired, you don't feel negative seeing Buddha. Buddha's speech is very meaningful. When you listen to Buddha's teaching, right words, that's very meaningful. And when we remember Buddha, right, we feel inspired. So how did Buddha become like that? So these are, so to speak, the way, when we kind of behave properly and we wish that our body, speech, and mind actions, all of them become inspirational for others, to feel positive and to do positive, to think positive. So all of these things go a long way, and that's how Shakyamuni Buddha or any Buddha has become a meaningful sight and meaningful to listen to and meaningful to remember.
chapda ting jong se chap se chori me di se re wa ting se sa boss ta ko ji ting so jong se di be nyone nyo to ba de si wo wa o di ba da xie ba de chou ju sim jong a de yang yu sim je chori me chori sim je so so ga za ya za ya bu ji che ra pe do ba wa mo ani ye ne shu de de kan je sim de yu do so ga ga xie chori be wa xie de ya nyama la tabu khad bae ba ning tabu ni ning tabu ko ma sha go dis te nyama se ya de jemen de te ja de si de milen nam da na nyama se ya de mo ba da
no
ri de ta phe me shong ba de si ko ji ta ko 대바 쓰면 거 거기 뭐지 따고 저거 써 대바 민게 저러
이렇게 냐승게 티셔kenza 냐승게 티셔
블라드빈 군분나로 냐마 카르네
내 냐바 티셔게 냐승게 여러 인지나로 본저 교도 냐바 티셔도 냐승게 여바게 냐바
알레 다데 데 노르 나 냐마시데 부미도 다지 대바 민게 되고 냐마 나간 신스도 먼저 따고 저거 가게 빼는 데요. 다 이게 뭐 오라나서 군저 쇼되나. 자가도 쇼지 용게도 당고당 걸이야. 나가지 뒤터와도 빼 구셔도 와. 나. 그래서 로쇼도 요 말이. 이제 좀 이제 할 대화다 내 지에도. 나. 어디서 냐마 나갈래 시디 거다. 매 양가 이거 빠라가서 제가 따고 저는 이거. 나. 어디서 와. 나. 어디 냐마 세디래. 밀레 부부나 디다 냐마 데카르치 셰예버세 네게 세시면 도다 잡세예버세로 디르 마모도 나서 디가지 디 밀라 소야 디 제메디데샤 할라노서 아 냐마 라가스디가 가지 가다에 데다 살 대바스카미에세 따고 저기서 셰셰 어디서 와
이거 좀 이렇게 이거 좀
이거 좀 ning tagbade khoma shagwe shauba shenis ruk the member choji so the sever choji sheo tabusa tadik jaha kumudu sheu shed ruk the member choji sida kaje khaz sex maye be tada lobjong jano ganga de datbe kun lobjong sheba na shid be yul member so shaj mendo no so has kumudu de no so 수디 세번 교직세 다 너지디도 세바이지레 노스 세바다 체가시 묵고시 거세 다 체가 고시고 아네 세중은 세중와세 데바시 마중 군조 제마 체바시 shum송사 토데 셰바 강먼주 라시베체 조아고 이등에 닝나드 나 풍에 지 너와라스 대화쟁이 너지 너와지 코나 숭송오사 어디 다디 체가 공부 저가라면 되발라 이네 세중세야디 코노기다 니네 기르디 비로아 이 기르디 다가베 그래 남지 삼로동에 대바나기 종마송시 근데 다 남지고 세중하다 대바 먼저 가래 나시 다 남지 드바니 모코라시디 다 공부 저가라면 인다도 먼저 가래 나시 제스와 뭐좀 군조 처바 좀 세들에 근데 뭐 가르치는 다 처바 좀 요새 아니 좀더 송사 토를 쉐바 강먼저라 쉐베스 다디 시중세야디 니네디 쉐르와 근데 제가 다 대바 좀 먼저 송도 아니 대바시 먼저 가지 맞은 야 쉬이서와 쉬도 됐어요 쉐베세 도와고 등에는 나 보면지 대발라 대화지 에네 너와지 코나 종고 송세 에네 코나 투기를 공부 시작하는데 심지어 다지 등에 가가야 나 보고 서로 랭고사 우딜 중나산데 투리야 포기 투기에 시바도 티인디 인다티 마요시 인 대화지 나와셔도 힘을 타고 다기는 나와도 샤요도 진짜 그러다 심지어 등에 냐야게 잡아도 소소 대회게 자체가 말아 진짜 진짜 다들 심지어 등에 렌터 마서 대화지 나와셔도 다 대화지 정말로 스타가서 대화지 나와셔도 되더라고 어디서 올때 어디서 그래서 총무 콩 총무서
we are on page 97. As we just talked about how we should behave properly so that our actions of body, speech, and mind all become very inspiring to others. When others remember us, see us, hear us, it all becomes meaningful for them. But how can that thing happen? If you say, right, how is that possible? Is, as Geshe explained, that if we sincerely train our mind to equalize self with others and exchange self for others, and we really cultivate awakened mind, if that kind of inner transformation takes place, then actually it happens, that whatever we say, whatever we do physically or think mentally, every action of our body, speech, and mind becomes very beneficial and inspiring to others by the power of awakened mind, by the power of equalizing and exchanging self for others. And so that means we have to be sincere and genuine in our mind training practice. We should not give just lip service to our practice and don't do it from the bottom of our heart. But if we do that, it will be like the example given here, and where it's translated as a fisherman visiting the temple. The Tibetan word really, I think, it's not the fisherman, but that kind of word appears often in Milarepa's, songs and gurus and like that, which really is to do with, in today's modern language, we say it's just like a tourist, visiting temples. Right? The tourists who have no faith and no interest in Dharma or in Buddhas, right? They just kind of quickly go around and look at this thing, look at this thing, and they just kind of get out. Okay, and because they have no interest, beyond that, just to see something, new, different, and exotic, and that's it. Then get out. So our practice should not be sort of at a superficial level like that. And Geshe was giving his own examples of how when he was at the Tibetan University in Saranath, and he observed how local Indians would come to the Tibetan temple there, and they seemed so devoted, right? As they live at the entrance, how the Indians are, they try to touch their hand to the entrance, and then touch their forehead and just pay their respect, and then they come inside, cover their heads, and women especially, and then they really bow down to the Buddha and so forth, But then in South India, he did realize the local Indians are very different. Many of them more like tourists, they just kind of pop in and out into the monasteries and then don't show that kind of respect and devotion, So it is really essential for us to engage in the mind-training practice with sincerity. We mean it, not just a lip service, because that's not going to transform into a meaningful sightseeing and recollection. As a great, Shaopa, said that he always wished all the virtuous actions to ripen, fruition upon others, and he wished that all the negativities and the self-centeredness of others worn out, or they kind of come to an end, so sincerely wish such things for the benefit of others. Another thing mentioned there in the middle of page 97 is the story of great Kadamba Geshe Chekawa. Kadamba Geshe Chekawa, when he was on his deathbed, he called his attendant or his disciple Sichungwa. He told him, I want you to do something for me. He said, I couldn't fulfill my wish, so I want you to make an offering on the altar for the 3 jewels. And Sichungwa was perplexed. He thought maybe my guru has dedicated all his life into practice, so I don't know, at the end of his life, what kind of wish is not fulfilled, And so he asked him, so Master, so what kind of wish is not fulfilled? You require me to set an offering for the 3 jewels. Geshe Chekawa said that I have every day wished to take others' suffering upon myself, and Geshe Chekawa wanted to think of others' suffering in the form of a black ball of light and then take it into his heart. But now he started to see the vision of Pure Land, so his wish is not fulfilled. He's not getting the vision that he's thinking, but he's getting a different vision. So that's why he said, my wish is not fulfilled. And as Geshe-la was chuckling over this, if something like this happened, we will probably choose the vision of the blissful land, Pure Land, rather than the other one that Geshe Chekawa was talking about. So Geshe Chekawa, every day throughout his life, he practiced taking others' suffering upon himself and giving the best of everything for others. He did not wish anything for himself. Even on his deathbed, he's still wishing to take others' suffering upon himself, but now he started to get a different vision, and he's not so happy with that, So he asked his attendant disciple to make extra offerings to the 3 jewels.
강시 시다의 최대 고르효네 로종시다 다히냠지 로종라시 로종아 나게 텐저기 류데라 대바시르 좀주소 가즈는 샤상와 시진 거사 시진세 비 시진 메버 그래도 치지 미벌 치köbe 예외신이지 그래서 치지 그래네 미벌 치köbe 예외신이지 그래지나 이제는 그래
로다 예외신인 더 캔다 이츠 컨티뉴르스 다 예외신이야 소소 자와시 여러 와게
치지 미발이사이다.
치게 미발 키 맞추게 계획신이 찍다제야. 미 치게 미발 키 맞추게 계획신이 찍다제야.
네.
미발 키 매추.
근데 다디 인진하고 티고라면도.
미발 키 맞추게 디레기를 먼저 쳐다. 가사발 따숑이
나마슬라로. 나래.
어디입니다.
맞아.
거기 쉬어다 서서 발래 또 말이 서서 쉬어도 발 되고 그러나 어디 미리 어디서 계획이 그 생긴데 다 도서인데 계획이 생긴데 말아 세이사래 지다 제니 제기 지서 좀 봐시 谢谢。第告诉水果是听见他一帮吧了，对的有个这个熊呢，我们这个是求解的，新年当把叫的不，来就红族大的，可是红族大的是，人家用的了这些苗啊的da，可中马上也种的那也是，毛把那的da三百些。常年用的员工的一派一些，就是做啥就没大不巧我是不是？我的这些，你可是缺的呀，抗杀就这样些的，怕出来的起码就是现在，咱怕出来缺的抗杀不知道轻着那种使用个这种啊。
那的。
那他给些人接呢？你这个当也是的怎么的？也是这样子的我嘛，然后也是铁路上他是多么送的这个嘛是吧？他是多么做没有些，但这几个人这个说的像水果那边听见你们休息都嘛是吧？那水果那边听见就是因为太你嘛了嘛噻呢，好像收过没嘛些，那水果你们了干面没有？现在这个那可是啥？这是我的。당연히 말은 마시고, 시다 예전에 여달 아니 사야 동에 고야면은 내도 말와. 어디부터 그래서 지금나 주제의 신여도 먼저 때부세 주문양도 다디스요. 그래서 네 주제 너무 뭐야 되시나 이 다다 대 여한 좀들 시작 라라고 당직 쉬우시고 야고 지게 야가다 부여 가와시나 아니 로메 주데는 좀더 버지고 와. 그때 무슨 거지? 봐. 지 신여도 뭐 지왔다 뭐 디데지 로마도 로메 채바 저지 용고 알시 거야 되지 뭐로 와. 그래서 그래. 옛날에 한다 런젤에 제시기보다 지난 건서 다지 공제 터서로지 쉬쉬지 공가시나 또바도 비하면도 가래나 뒤지 계속 맞아래.
노소.
이 사스는 쇼제도 좀더 못 채워나 샤가 아시.
노소. 노소. No. We are at the bottom of page 97 and page 98. In italics, it states, seek for the three principal causes. So as Geshe explained, in general, the three principal causes refer to Kesam Komsum, listening, contemplation and meditation, or study, contemplation, reflection and meditation. And in this particular context, all of them were focused on mind training, which involves equalizing and exchanging, self with others, and fulfilling the internal favorable conditions, which include fully endowed human form, precious human life characterized by freedoms and enriching factors, and have faith in the guru and the three jewels, have the intelligence to be able to understand Dharma, and be enthusiastic in the study, contemplation, and meditation. So these are internal conditions, and then the external favorable conditions include having enough resources to be able to pursue study, contemplation, meditation. And as Geshe said, Tibetan, in terms of resources, we are thinking about sort of in the middle ground, where we don't seek too much resources, riches, because then that can be distracting. But of course, we need to have enough basic necessities of life to be able to sustain and practice, so that kind of resources. And so among the most important external favorable conditions is meeting with qualified spiritual gurus and forming really a pure relationship with the gurus. So that's where we're struggling. I think in the Tibetan Geshe struggle to read something, and he was helped, which is interesting that I don't think they have translated everything in this English translation, where it's simply translated as external conditions of having formed a warm and honest relationship with the spiritual master. That's all it said. But in the Tibetan text, the kind of connection one has with the spiritual guru is very pure and profound, and metaphorically speaking, there should not be gap between disciples' mind and the guru's, as if a dog can run in between, the two. Yeah, well, there's nothing about dog in the translation or anything, right? In other words, as we often say, as Dharma practitioner, our mind and Dharma must be one, right? We should not have a gap between the Dharma and the mind as if a horse can run in between or somebody can run in between. Then there's a gap between mind and Dharma, right? Then that doesn't work. We have to see that our mind is Dharma and Dharma is, in the mind. And so that kind of pure relationship with the gurus. And if all of these things happen, then, realizations will arise and progress will happen. If we look at our own situations, as it is depicted at the bottom of the page, 97 and top of page 98, that the reason why, even though we seem to be studying, practicing Dharma, why we may not find ourselves gaining realizations is because some of the conditions or one of the conditions is missing. When the conditions are missing, then things will not happen, isn't it? So the kind of relationship that guru and disciple, should have, kind of classic kind of definition is how great Indian master Atisha and his main disciple Domtemba, that kind of relationship. Great Atisha had many disciples in India and Tibet, but among them all, the one with the purest and the spiritual relationship between guru and disciple is between Atisha and the layman Upasaka Domtemba, And if we have that kind of a fortunate relationship with the guru, and we have all these external and internal favorable conditions, and then if we apply ourselves into listening, contemplation, meditation, and focus on mind training, we should be able to gain spiritual insights and realizations.
Because more of that time is because somebody you that that is it. That because you want to that be sure church this Gumsum Ganga Shenala Betado Tobaya would came out of the dinner Jewish Muslim Taris. She the mob and Duke had it. This is in the Judy become Mama Sayada in the jail 10 Mama top of a young dark the pair of Monja suggestion or to show today some little Shena in the room about the Java Karsa Georgia Jevana Shagari. She said.
So on top of page 98, you find it stated that so if we look at ourselves, and even though we are engaged in study and practice of Dharma, if we feel that we are not progressing, we are not gaining spiritual insight realization, that means that certain condition is not fulfilled or missing. So we should make sure that we create those conditions which are necessary, and we also make earnest dedication prayers that whatever virtues that we're accumulating through study, contemplation, meditation, may all of this help us to fulfill the missing conditions and so that we are able to have the same kind of spiritual experience progress that Domtemba had in his relationship with great Atisha. Because in the case of Domtemba, his realizations are increasing all the time, like the waxing moon. So we would like to have that kind of experience that our realizations are on increase. And for that to happen, we have to create the necessary conditions and we have to make dedicated prayers. So we'll stop there today and we will welcome your questions. And let me see. So there are two questions. I'll go one by one. How do you control anger that arises when you see someone continually taking advantage of another person and causing them harm? Kandi thamgo shwe di dirisha again. Ta tanda di rowa nganzo mi shamba chegi rowa gen. meet in the Kashik mill never again in the Dua. In the town they do Kanlia and a Konrosag the Wagin. Cancer got never get the Zamshak or Kiji Tigi or Wake, Yamalang Tigerwa. Then they see the Kanlia Kondo de Ma jumped up Segurata, Kondo de Gone Chedre, some look at time or less again. Shandy and never chain the Yamalang thing the Yorwaka, Ton de or the Kondo de.
That did the country name, Mill Corners and the corners did say Della dinner. They made the mother by shame with the Tamam, but Lamsu told her, said him, said Shima ending in the country name is the Samtana. And that did some good. That the man that I called Colonel and that Hadako chick. Mando Shirma, Joe, one could not paint out the Pamashit is Shamro Mambo Show, this summer, and could continue.
No, sir. No, sir.
Someone the correct on it.
No, sir. What Geshe said are two things here. In such a situation, of course, one thing, as we talked about, to be able to deal with any afflictive emotion, anger, we have to reflect on its, disadvantages. Getting upset for whatever reason, it could be very detrimental in this life and in future lives, And so that will help us to be able to deal with our own anger as we witness, someone continuously taking advantage of another person and causing them harm. The other way to think is that, this other person also we can, think in terms of, Oh yes. This other person that we are seeing, of course, at this moment, the situation is doing something harmful. But at the same time, this other person, how should I say, may have done some good things too. So we try to, think on the positive side of any person, because we have both good and bad. And maybe if you can change your perspective on the other person, thinking in that way, that might help us to be able to deal with our anger. The footnote is that this may not change anything with the person, but we are trying to deal with our own anger, right? How can we subdue our anger? So two things, reflect on the disadvantages of anger, getting angry, and the other person is try to look at the person from another perspective or another angle, not anger, angle, perspective. The next one, please clarify distinction between being inspiring to others and earlier image of keeping practice hidden like light under a vase. That thinking this sumberwang ajo lunga is sumki chawa khari seba yimba ine and yakuji cheji shen ya tawan dembada shenji rowaken shen ya ta kasore nawang roya da kesem ke da takwa chimbol juge den chewos labrwagen. 나 가상에만 데 대송송 소소를 똑바다 가려 여베 이네 분랑기 말메신 데 배고를 식송송 사르와게 다 데니 아니 다코 베제 개벌스 통금에로와게 아 데니기 이야와디 이에삼르데 야고송로 제사 똑바다 지기는 분랑기 말메신 배고를 식송송 사르와 나 데링 베 삽삽제 야고지 체 밀리 로와게 당원 데만 라브와게 디
데르시고다 배요 소소 시부 쳔고에 노도 시고 뭐다 소소 루가에서 꾸죠 가를 때는 미 대bat자야 데리 꾸죠 샤고를 시고
노소
다 계속 시야도 그래서 아니 나 자주서 공부해도 제가 저 시부 인동도 시야죠로 봐 그래서 데바들랑 사쇼서 들어
나네
소소 시부 인동도 되시죠 말이지
노소
나도 인데 개발 잡니다
노소 So Geshe explains that what we talked about today is just behaving properly, so this inspiring others. It's not, as we said, we're completely thinking about positively, think positively, speak positively, and how should I say, do positively, so that others feel inspired. But we are not acting in any particular way, or we don't have to show out all our realizations, if we do have one, hypothetically speaking, isn't it? But the last time was all kind of a being hypocrite or not even hypocrite, like say, even if you have realizations, as we said, it's better to conceal them rather than, show them to others. And then there are others who are in the habit of like, you know what, I'm a bodhicitta practitioner, I'm a Vajrayana, blah, blah, blah. As if just kind of sending all these messages to others, like, I'm somebody special, not equal among everybody else. so that somebody will treat you differently, respect you, will give you gifts or whatever, right? So it's a very different matter, isn't it? So here we think that we don't have to behave differently, but to behave positively, so that we don't misbehave that makes others feel disinterested, anything. Just behave positively to inspire others. So that's what we are talking about today. Then there is a question down below. Is it correct that we can generate a bodhicitta mind after accumulating good merit? If so, why are some people who are kind but dimmer faculty, and vice versa people who are evil have sharper faculty? Isn't the mental... Oh, that's too many questions. Okay, so gotta be careful. Isn't the mental habituation of bodhicitta mind has higher merit and should be sharper mental faculty? Okay, so I will ask Geshe each question separately, otherwise they will all get mixed up. And okay, then they tiwa manguchi nyamta tang do again, ready to shoot. Tanda changju sim ke la rwage, and in ganzu tango sona mangushi sa kugu marabesa, sona mangushi sa be chela changju sim ki marabesa, okay, rwa. So first, is it correct that we can generate a bodhicitta mind after accumulating good merit? Yes, after accumulating a lot of merit, then we will generate bodhicitta. Okay, question number 1 answered. Now the next one. If so, why are some people who are kind but dimmer faculty, and why some evil people have... Okay. Dinde yiba yinas again. That would do what I go to Rwag. Yiba yina, and me kashe be me sem sangu dende dos Rwag. Yan do study gal me kazo ong du dinde Rwag, ong du dinde. Yan me kashe choba ngemar mingen dende dos, ong nombo dende Rwag. Ti kari chebres again.
Ale, 제대로 다 근데 쳐서야 된다다. 먼저 새들이 지어야 되니까 더 지시야. 이네 선제고가 더야 지고로. 지도 뭐가 그 아무 찍바 요말 왔을 수도 장바실 녀마 방자 상우다. 이네 새들이나 때도 제기데 폐샤 저강암의 방자 상에 뭐 검디는 새들 아무 너무 차고로.
나네. 저강암시라 거기 다들 새들 신의 라도 떼우셔나. 엔 코시다 사주요 말아. 그래서 갈래갈래 배 저와 튀니야 뭐지 람자람자 배 타라토야도 사지한데도 요 말아. 그런데 tendency 소남 시부 사비나 엔베 슝마토기 로하게다 슈그넬 아니 저 가서 리본 농부 차그러 섬 텐트 그래서 로하게 그 차바게 요 말오게 소남 사네.
소문사나 다 지다 튀게 리본도야 튀게 너도 요죠.
이제 차바
진짜 소문 지워 사는 시야 마잖아. 리본 농부 차고 말.
그런 섬 전주 쌤이나 게 리본 농부 이메 차발링도 와게 전주 쌤게나 아니 리본 원능이 바스코 쓰거든. 근데 이메 나서 전주 쌤.
다들 말해. 전주 쌤 코로나 쌤 그런지 코로나 야부지 콜 때네 용대 현다 희부 내용으로 짜심부셔야 된대로 봐.
나네.
그런 무엇인지 그
싫은 말로 봐.
님들아 들을 깨다시야 그 말로 봐.
전주 단다 전주 군저 전주 쌤이나 게 싫어 그 차스게 말로 와.
차서 탑시하라.
탑시하라 와. Okay, so I think you will get good, clear answers. So is it correct that we generate a bodhicitta after accumulating good merit? Yes. Now, connecting to that, you ask the next question. If so, why are some people who are kind but dimmer faculty, vice versa, some people are evil, have sharper faculty? Geshe said that a lot of this, faculty differences are maybe due to our previous karmic, actions and results. What we did in the past life. Of course, all of us, let's say, are equally interested in pursuing enlightenment, but in terms of our faculties, we could be sharp, mediocre, or weak. And a lot of these things are related to our previous lives, the habitual patterns, and things like that. Okay? And so your next question is, isn't the mental habituation of bodhicitta mind has higher merit and should be sharper mental faculty? Usually we believe that the more merit we accumulate, that would facilitate developing a sharper faculty. But not necessarily. Bodhicitta or awakened mind is a method side. Upaya, it's more of a kindness attitude, peaceful, isn't it? Bodhicitta is not in the nature of wisdom. Right? When we talk about method and wisdom, right? Bodhicitta is a method. It's a kindness. It's caring. It's compassion. It's loving, And of course, with the bodhicitta, we have amazing merit, and we will definitely, be able to accumulate other qualities, and it could facilitate cultivating sharper faculty. But bodhicitta by itself is not necessarily a sharp faculty. Okay? So we hope your questions are answered.